Greetings, scholars! I am so excited to teach you how to save yourself from Donald Trump. Bum bum bum! I'm still too poor to afford a actual sound effect. Now I must say, the man comes off rather poorly spoken at times. I'll let you read this quote and, yeah. But he did go to Wharton, and that's probably one of the best schools in the nation, and so you would think he knows something about communication. In fact, a lot of experts believe that his simple and emotional language is a huge part of why he has so much support. So be careful, or he might sneak up on you. Donald, you sly little minx. And before we start, don't be so naive to think that Trump is the only one using these tricks. Some of our most trusted authorities are guilty as well. So the first big idea is to appeal to people's emotions, not their logic. Philosophers generally agree that there's three basic ways to persuade people. The first is logos, which uses logic to connect premises. The second is ethos, where you basically make your point from a stance of authority. And this is why if you had an engineering question, you'd probably ask someone like Thomas Edison before you asked a good-looking engineering undergraduate who makes YouTube videos. Ha ha, laugh with me, viewer. The third way is called pathos, or pathos, where we appeal to people's emotions. Aristotle studied these in depth, and he ranked them in order of their power over people. And what do you think he said? So he actually said pathos was the best, followed by ethos, and logos was the worst. Now that might seem counterintuitive, but let me give you an example. You have bad vocabulary. Not that bad. You're an idiot. Way worse. But if you think about it, insulting someone's vocabulary has a much more reasonable connection to intelligence. But it doesn't matter, that's not how your brain thinks. It's all about emotion. The second big way media manipulation happens is by keeping a simple message. Sometimes too simple. A fellow YouTuber named Nerdfighter did a study which revealed that 78% of Trump's words are one syllable, which means that he's speaking at a 4th grade reading level. And this may seem foolish, but it plays on a powerful cognitive bias. Real quick, a cognitive bias is basically just a weakness in human rationality, and most of them are just remnants from our ancestors, whose brains were just wired for different tasks. Like, they didn't have political elections, but they also didn't have air conditioning or cheeseburgers. Fools. So the first bias is called conservatism bias, and this is the idea that people are more likely to agree with things that they can understand. These simple words are comforting to us because they are easy. Secondly, the interpretation bias dictates that we are more likely to agree with things that make us feel good. So if we understand the words better, we feel smarter and we feel better about ourselves. And if you're not convinced yet, there's also a cognitive bias called the blind spot bias, which says that we see others' biases much easier than our own. So don't get cocky. The third thing that Donald does really well is not play by the rules of the game that everyone else does. Let me ask you something. When did you first realize that you hated Donald Trump? In legal terms, this is called a leading question, and no matter how you answer the question, it makes you look like a Trump hater. But there's also a cognitive bias at play called the supportive bias, and the idea is that people feel more positively about choices they make themselves, even though in reality they're not really given a choice at all. Now, you might say, I'll just say nothing and I'll be safe. Yeah, that won't work either. You see, leaving an argument without responding is kind of like leaving a boxing ring and expecting to win. It's not gonna happen. It hurts your authority, and as we said before, people care about authority more than logic. So make sure you control the rules of the game. Just remember what Einstein says. Everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by how well it climbs a tree, the fish will believe it's stupid, is the best Einstein impression you've ever heard. So make yourself the judge and your opponent the fish, and the tree is like the microphone or something. I don't know, you get the point. Last but not least, establish a consistent and valuable identity. Trump is really good at this, and it plays on what's called the outcome bias. And the idea here is that positive results imply positive causes. I remember I started playing rugby in college my freshman year, and I wasn't very good, and a big part of that was my speed. So I saw this YouTube video about how hill sprints are supposed to make you faster, and I thought I'd give it a try. And all the starters and all the kids that were getting playing time thought it was the stupidest thing ever, like, you're wasting your time, you're overtraining, or whatever. And that's because they had no reason to think it was a good idea because I suck. But a year later, I'm one of the fastest guys on the team, and everyone's like, what's your secret? Like, what do you do? What do you work out? And I'm like, my secret is the same thing that everyone thought was so stupid. And Trump is big with this one. He's a billionaire, and so everyone assumes he's a good decision maker. This plays to what's called suggestibility, which psychologists have labeled one of the 7 deadly sins of memory. And the idea is that if you hear information over and over and over, it must be correct. It's also called the media bias. It's like Vladimir Lenin said, "A lie told over enough becomes the truth." Oh, I'm so good at impressions. So you're probably sitting there like, sweet, now I know all these random psychology terms. What does that actually do for me? And what I'm here to tell you is that seeing and avoiding media manipulation is like training a muscle. It's not like a binary, you have it or you don't. And also, some people's life's work is to manipulate others through the media. And so all I'm asking you to do is give it an honest effort. At the very least, you should be able to tell your friends all these little tricks and make them think you're smart. But I hope you're inspired to use this and look at news a little bit differently. So just to recap some of these tools, play to people's emotion, not their logic. Keep your message simple. Play by your own rules and make others play by them too. Establish a consistent and valuable identity. Finally, and probably most importantly, practice these things. It's not going to happen overnight. Alright, so here's our Videoly challenge. Get it like daily, but I mean, let's be honest, I'm not going to put a video out each day. I mean, who am I, Jenna Marbles? Anyways, the Videoly challenge is to name the religion associated with "One should strive to act with compassion and empathy towards all creatures in accordance with reason." So guess a religion and leave it in the comments. Thanks for watching.